What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the LA Fakers YouTube channel, and we are back with some NFL action. It was week 1 of the NFL, a very exciting week overall. Some interesting results for sure. And of course, we're going to be doing our week 2 predictions a bit later in the video. But, is there anything you would like to say, Jam?
Not really. Pretty solid.
Nothing
week.
about the Browns?
I have a lot to say about the Browns, but we'll get to that later.
Alright, the first game of the week was the Thursday Night Football, the kickoff to the NFL. It was the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Dallas Cowboys without Micah Parsons, their first game without him. And it was actually a pretty highly competitive game. The Eagles just squeaking the victory out, 24 points to 20. Overall, it was a pretty competitive game all the way through. The first half was a very good game. Dak and the Cowboys were honestly kind of cooking. I think Philadelphia were keeping up with them. I believe Philadelphia went in with the lead. A couple Jalen Hurts plays helped them. But overall, the second half was not very good. It was a punt fest. And yeah, it ended up being a Philadelphia win. Dak Prescott thought he was very solid. He went for 188 yards. Javonte Williams, of all people, had 2 touchdowns. He was the first touchdown getter of the season. And CeeDee Lamb, you see 7 receptions for 110 yards and you think it's a good game, but he had some pretty mediocre drops. And then moving on for Philadelphia, the Eagles, Jalen Hurts had a very solid game as well. He threw for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley is Saquon Barkley. He ran for 62 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns on 14 carries. And Jahan Dotson was actually the leading receiver for the Eagles because they didn't target AJ Brown at all. And yeah, overall, a very solid win for the Cowboys. Not too much. Whoa, for the Eagles. A very solid win for the Eagles.
But the next game, the next day in Brazil, the Los Angeles Chargers beat the Kansas City Chiefs 27-21. You called this last week. I definitely was expecting a Chiefs win. But the Chargers just played amazingly. Herbert showed why he is in that upper echelon of quarterbacks. He was amazing. He had 318 yards, 3 TDs, added over 30 rushing yards. Looked phenomenal. Outplayed Patrick Mahomes, honestly. Their run game struggled. Amari and Hampton didn't have the best debut. But Quentin Johnston had one of his best games in the last few years. 5 catches, 79 yards, 2 TDs. Keenan Allen was actually surprisingly pretty good as well. I thought he was nice, which I was honestly happy to see because I do really like Keenan Allen. But he had 7 catches, 68 yards and a TD, and McConkey also had 70 yards. But what was really the story of this game was the way the Chargers just handled the late game situation. They got the ball back with 12 minutes left, up 2 points, and just drained so much clock. Ended up scoring a Quentin Johnston TD with only 5 minutes left, drained 7 minutes off the clock, and made it a 2-score game, which just put the Chiefs out of reach. For the Chiefs side of the ball, they kind of struggled in the opening half, only scored 6 first half points, which included a really good field goal to end the half where I'm sure you probably saw it. The field goal team ran on with 13 seconds left and got the kickoff, and it was really good. Overall, it wasn't great for them, and the stuff that I was kind of suggesting that might happen, I thought that maybe their passing game would get going a bit this week. It did not. You really saw the lack of options. Xavier Worthy got hurt, and Hollywood Brown was their best receiver, the Chiefs. So that kind of shows you where they are. I don't think it's time to panic for the Chiefs, but the Chargers are a really solid team, and they should be competing for a playoff spot. Might be competing for the division. It's early, but that was a great win. But the Chiefs just really got to figure out something offensively, and figure it out quick.
Fair enough. And the next game was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just barely squeaking it out over the Falcons. I believe we might have both had the Bucks, or I might have had the Falcons. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, overall a very solid game from both teams. Baker Mayfield threw for 167 yards and 3 touchdowns. A very good performance from him, you know, as we kind of come to expect. He's a very solid quarterback, and he showed that. Although Atlanta's defense isn't the most amazing still, you know, he still did his job. He was also the team's leading rusher with 39 yards, so, you know, he was doing everything out there. Bucky Irving struggled, surprisingly, with 14 attempts and only 37 yards. But the standout is the rookie, Ibuka, Ohio State. Once again, another Ohio State receiver cooking up. He had 60 yards and 2 touchdowns in his debut. A very good performance from the rookie, and was definitely one of the top rookies this week. Mike Evans also was pretty solid with 50 yards, and yeah, overall a very solid game from them. Anyways, moving on to the Falcons side of the ball, Michael Penix threw for nearly 300 yards and a touchdown. Honestly, a very solid start for the second year veteran, if you will, the second year player. The Falcons had basically no run game, with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier both only having 24 rushing yards and only having 2 yards per carry. But receiving is where Bijan absolutely dominated, having 100 yards and 1 touchdown receiving, so he was definitely a threat at backfield. And overall, a very competitive and fun game to start the season for both teams. I think that they could both be really competitive in that division, and it just shows. You know, I feel like every week they're competitive, and once again.
Okay, moving on to my Cleveland Browns. An unfortunate 1-point loss to the Bengals that we really should have won, but in the most Browns fashion ever, we lost. Honestly, I'm not too upset though. We're not competing for anything, and I loved what I saw. We're going to start with the Bengals because I don't have much for them. Burrow looked good early, you know. He had just over 100 yards of the TD. I thought Chase Brown started really well, but by the end of the game, he was averaging just over 2 yards a carry. But he started really well, and overall, just there's not a ton of positives for the Bengals. It shouldn't have been that close of a game, to be honest. They shouldn't have won that, which is saying something. They start so normally, and they did it again. For the Browns, a lot of great, you know, great performances that I love to see. Flacco was very solid despite 2 picks. They were both tipped up from receivers. Unfortunate. Jerry frickin' Judy sucks, but whatever. I hope he can fix it. He had a 4th down drop, and he also tipped the ball into a cornerback or a DB, whatever. So not a great start for him, but he had like 60 yards or something. I thought the rookies on offense were brilliant, and we're gonna get Judkins back soon, which is gonna be awesome. But Dylan Sampson didn't do much in the run game, but had like 8 catches for 64 yards. He was looking amazing after the catch, and I thought he was really good. I thought Harold Fannin Jr. might go down as one of the biggest, you know, slides in the draft. He was amazing. And the Joker was solid. Cedric Tillman, I liked what I saw. Obviously, unfortunately, we lost because of Andre Smith missing the kick. I believe I'm fine with the Browns keeping a kicker. It's his first game in the NFL, but very unfortunate. And he missed 2 kicks, actually. So, that sucks, but whatever. Yeah, I'm not too concerned over this loss. The Browns aren't competing for anything. It's just good to see the young players hooping. Denzel Ward locked up Jamar Chase. Greg Newsom played really good coverage on Chase as well, and Higgins. And Myles Garrett's Myles Garrett. You know, he was amazing. So that's all I got to say. Good win for the Bengals, but actually a trash win. I thought the Browns played way better. So.
And now moving on to maybe the most surprising result of the week. Not necessarily because, you know, it was, I don't know, it was not expected at all. The Colts coming out and dominating the Miami Dolphins with Daniel Jones absolutely destroying them and starting their season off 1-0. And we'll start with the Dolphins. Tua, there's been a lot of concerns with him, you know, in the off season. He's obviously had a bunch of concussions, and He actually might have got. I don't know if you saw it. He might have got concussed
Yeah, so
on one of the tackles, and still played on. Whether he did or not, who knows? He definitely played like it though. Throwing for 114 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 picks.
I
Just
clicked
not a
over
good day.
to watch that game for a little bit while the Browns were on a commercial or something. The Dolphins were on offense. I couldn't watch it for more than like 3 plays. It was some of the worst football I've seen in recent years.
Devon Achane actually had a solid game though. Only 7 carries is kind of wild, but 55 yards for him. And then Tyreek Hill went for a cool 4 receptions for 40 yards. That's my fantasy goat right there. He's definitely going to be traded for like a 6th round pick. Um, yeah. But moving on to the real football team. Daniel Jones was him. He's got me. He's got my voice cracking. He was so good. He threw for 272 yards and a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor was doing Jonathan Taylor things and had 71 yards on 18 carries. And Michael Pittman, he didn't write back. He had 90 yards on 6 receptions and a touchdown. So overall, a very good outing. And also, this Colts offense are the first team, at least in a while, I'm not sure how long it's been, to not punt. They all like, they scored on every single drive, which is just insane. And a very, very, very good start for them. And we'll see how they go next week versus my Denver Broncos. But overall, a really good start to the season.
And we're moving on to one of those teams that I thought was going to be really good in the Carolina Panthers, and they weren't. They lost 10-26 against the Jags. I thought, for the Jags, first game under Liam Cohen, and it looked really good. Trevor Lawrence was solid. Did have some mistakes, but overall finished with 178 yards, a TD and a pick. But ETN was where, the magic happened. 16 carries, 143 yards. And he was just the workhorse behind that offense for the Jaguars. Brian Thomas was struggling, but he did have a rushing touchdown. Not a ton, to comment on. Travis Hunter was alright. He wasn't as crazy as some of the people thought. I don't know why people thought he was just going to be putting up 100 yards while playing on defense. But yeah, he was alright. Brenton Strange led their team with 59 yards and 4 catches. Very good performance by the Jags, I thought. We know the Panthers' defense was pretty bad last year, so there's a chance that that this was fake. We'll have to wait and see how real this performance was. For the Panthers, Bryce Young, kind of disappointing. He had some good moments. We just put up 10 goals. Oh my gosh.
He just put up 10 goals.
He had a very disappointing performance, 2 picks, but showed glimpses in the run game, and picks weren't entirely his fault, especially the first one was tipped. Take McMillan, the rookie wide receiver, was solid though. That was good for them, 68 yards on 5 catches. And Hubbard actually had 32 receiving yards for a TD. Overall, I was quite disappointed by how the Panthers looked. But, it might be a sign that the Jags are just better than I thought. And maybe I was just blinded by that #1 overall pick that the Browns hold. But, yeah, we'll have to wait and see, whether that's the Jags being good or the Panthers being bad. But, yeah. There was also a big delay in this game, so I didn't actually watch much of it. There was some lightning and stuff.
Moving on. Alright. It is the Las Vegas Raiders under new management, if you will. New quarterback, new head coach. Pete Carroll leading his Raiders to a win over the Patriots. The Patriots, I think they are going to be a gutsy team this year. There's definitely a team still figuring things out, and you can't expect them to be good immediately. I didn't think that they were going to be amazing immediately, but there's definitely going to be some growing pains, and this was definitely one of those games. But the Raiders, they got the job done. Their new quarterback in town, Geno Smith, had a pretty solid game, throwing for 326 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. And these guys are cooking. What the hell? In what was overall a very solid game for him in his Raiders debut. Ashton Genty, you know, teams are definitely going to be marking up on him this year. He only averaged 2 yards per carry with 19 rushes for 38 yards, but interestingly, I believe he had 44 yards, like post contact. He was definitely putting the work in, and it was clear that his offensive line isn't the greatest, and he kind of got cooked, unfortunately. But moving on from that, Brock Bowers was the leading receiver, as he is, with 103 yards on 5 receptions, and you know, overall continuing his ascendingness into the best tight end in the league. But I believe he did suffer an MCL injury, or like a sprain on the weekend or in the game. So I don't know what might happen there. For the Patriots, Drake May had a very solid first game, I'd say. You know, not the worst rookie quarterback out of last year's, or not the worst quarterback out of last year's class. I think we all know who that went to. But he threw for 287 yards, 1 touchdown to 1 interception. Overall, kind of the same stat line as Gino, low-key. They're going band for band. It was a pretty solid game. And the Raiders pull out the Week 1 W under new quarterback and coach.
But now, moving on to a pretty, you know, uninteresting game. There was the Arizona Cardinals winning 20-13 against the Saints, in a game that didn't feature, you know, much in the second half. Most of the game happened in the first half, with only 6 total points occurring in the second half. For the Cardinals, the offense was pretty inconsistent. I thought Kyler Murray had some good moments. He looked pretty good overall, but the Cardinals were just struggling to get, you know, big plays offensively. Trey Benson was good, which I liked. I definitely like Trey Benson. He had 8 carries for 69 yards, including a 52-yarder.
Nice.
James Conner had a receiving TD but struggled rushing. Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State University was very good. 4 catches, 71 yards TD. Could have had more, but you know, that's just how it goes. I think he could be in for a pretty big year. You know, for all those people calling him a bust already, I feel like they're gonna be proven wrong very soon, because he looked very solid. Trey McBride also had 61 yards and was, you know, doing Trey McBride stuff. He's a good tight end. For the Saints, Spencer Rattler wasn't spectacular. He had 214 yards, but 46 total pass attempts, completed 27 of them. It was very kind of similar to the Cardinals, not many risks involved. Alvin Kamara was pretty good with a TD, 45 yards rushing. And Juwan Johnson was the leader of the Saints receiving game. Chris Olave added another Ohio State receiver, added 53 yards and 7 catches. He is actually questionable for next game. I don't know if that is because he got absolutely rocked at one point. But yeah, that happened.
Well, the next game was kind of, at least to me, shockingly, maybe the game of the week. It was the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the New York Jets and winning in a surprise shootout, 34 points to 32. And you know, I was a big Aaron Rodgers guy last year, and you know, I've always said it. I was a big Aaron Rodgers guy this year. He was amazing. He threw for 244 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 picks. Looking like prime A-Rod out here. He was absolutely dotting up the Jets defense, and he played extremely well. DK Metcalf, in his debut with the Pittsburgh Steelers, had 83 yards on 4 catches, which is very solid for him. Calvin Austin actually played really well with 70 yards and a touchdown. And you know, there's not too much else to say. They just all chipped in for a really good performance. So overall, a very good performance from them. But kind of more shockingly, the Jets actually performed really well in their Week 1 game. You know, something that I didn't quite expect with a new quarterback. You know, it might take a while for them, but Justin Fields was great. He had 218 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 picks, and added 2 rushing touchdowns on the ground with 50 yards rushing overall. That's actually an extremely good and effective week from him. Rushing wise, you know, the Jets were the complete opposite. They were balling out. They were dominating. Brees Hall might might be, you know, might actually break out and have a really good season. He had 107 yards on 19 carries and overall the Jets had a very good rushing week. Receiving, yet again, it is another Ohio State receiver, Garrett Wilson, went for 95 yards and a touchdown on 7 catches. A very, very good week from him. Not too much else could be said for the rest of the team though. And overall, very good game from the two teams. And if you didn't actually see the ending of it, but before I do go away, Jalen Ramsey, who is also another new Pittsburgh Steeler, joining the unction, actually won the game for them with a game-winning, I think, just like incompletion, like forced incompletion on Garrett Wilson. So, you know, Garrett Wilson was talking smack to him, and Jalen Ramsey got back at him and ended up winning the game for the Steelers. But overall, a very good game.
Shout out Justin Fields. But moving on. The next game is a divisional matchup. It was the Washington Commanders beating the New York Giants, 21-6. Not a game that had much to really talk about, but Jane Daniels looked pretty good. You know, wasn't perfect, but it's week 1, so he finished with 233 yards and a TD and put up 70 yards rushing, just about. He did have a mistake, an intentional grounding penalty, which took away what would have been some points at the end of the first half. But yeah, he was pretty good. But really, you know, running back Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, a guy that fantasy players have seemed to love over the past month. He's been rising and rising in the draft ranks. He was really good with 10 carries, 82 yards, and a touchdown, which included a 42-yard run. Debo was a leading receiver with 77 receiving yards, and he had a 19-yard TD in the fourth quarter to really put it out of reach for the Giants. Zach Ertz also had a TD, and McLaurin was kind of disappointing, but you know, I'm sure they hope they can get the man that they paid that much money the ball some more next game. But for the Giants, they sucked. The offense sucked. You know, not much of a surprise. I'm, you know, sure you can relate to Giants fans right now having an old Russell Wilson. He wasn't very good. He had only 168 passing yards. He had 44 rushing, but under 50% completion percentage with only 17 completions, 37 attempts. Malik Neighbors was solid with 5 catches for 71, but they were trying to get him the ball quite a lot, and there was quite a lot of, you know, missed connection and failed passes. So hopefully they can figure that out before next week. But Wan'Dale Robinson was actually, you know, had some really good glimpses, had 55 yards, and Brian Burns and their D-line overall looked pretty good. But Burns had 2 sacks. Overall, though, the Giants' offense was just too bad. Didn't score a single touchdown, and that's what led to their demise. A nice little win for the Commanders. They really beat them in pretty much all the game stats. They had 432 total yards, and they had 8 more first downs than the Giants. So,
Moving on from that Washington performance, it was my Denver Broncos taking on the Tennessee Titans, and while I'm not really sure how to feel about this one, to be honest, let's just start with the positives. We'll start with the Titans' positives, which was Cam Ward himself. He played a really nice game overall, and it's clear as to why this Titans team was worst team in the league last year. They sucked. I'm pretty sure his last drive of the game, where they were only down 8, they dropped it every single time, and then he got fumbled by Jaquan McMillan. But he was actually splitting apart our defense at some points in the game. Tony Pollard had a okay game with 18 carries, 60 yards, and he was also the leading receiver. And overall, yeah, just not the greatest game ever. There's a lot of water saves happening. You know, from a top 5 receiving core in the league, I kind of expected more. Of course, no one thinks that but Cam Ward, and I think he got proven wrong. So, yeah. But moving on for the Broncos, my Broncos. The positives were definitely the defense. I kind of just cooked them, but they did play extremely well. Patrick Surtain II is the greatest player of all time. He held the receivers. He did not allow a single catch in at all from any receivers. He was absolutely locked down. He was cooking. The whole defense was playing well. Hufanga had a forced fumble. There's a couple of sacks for Stenard, who's a really good rookie, or was a rookie, and I really like him. As well as Nick Benito, who just got a big contract, and Jonathan Cooper. And as I mentioned before, Jaquan McMillan had the game-sealing strip sack. And overall, I just thought that they played extremely well, and I'm so excited to see them this year. You know, they are going to be a really scary defense, and they were really scary. You know, it was a good warm-up game, I should say, for them. And yeah, but to the negatives, which was the offensive side of the ball, they did score 2 touchdowns, which is better than some teams can say. But overall, they weren't the best. Bo Nix threw for 176 yards with only 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. Overall, you know, maybe it's just jitters or nerves. I don't know exactly what it was, but he definitely was not on. He was very much like he was at the start of last season. And, you know, it's going to happen. Joe Burrow didn't play the best game either. You know, there's a couple quarterbacks who probably didn't. And you can't expect every quarterback to be elite immediately. RJ Harvey, on only 6 attempts, has 70 yards with a long of 50. So, you know, to all the RJ Harvey haters out there, I think that he's going to have a really good season. AKA Jam, who hates
I'm a liker. What?
No, yeah, no. All
Bro,
you do
you
is
didn't even
clown
know
on him for
him.
being 24.
You didn't even know him, and I was, bro. You didn't even know him when
What
he
do you
was
mean
drafted.
I didn't even know him.
You didn't
I
know
knew
him when he was drafted, and
I
I'm the one
knew
that
him, I knew
said that
him,
he's
I knew
lit. Because I had him in Brown's
Jesus.
franchise on Madden. Don't put this on my name.
Yeah, but receiving wise, Cortland Sutton had a solid game, being our leading receiver with 60 yards and a touchdown. Troy Franklin was, also solid with 44 yards. And really not much else is to be said. Overall, it just wasn't the greatest game. And yeah, I mean, we pull out the W. I'm not really feeling that hyped about it, but hey, a W is a W.
The next game is the San Francisco 49ers, who beat the Seattle Seahawks 17-13. But they also suffered a lot of injuries in 49ers fashion. It was, a George Kittle injury. He's now on IR for a hamstring injury. He was looking pretty good before it. He had a TD. But yeah, that sucks for them. But it was actually the backup tight end, the 3rd string tight end, matter of fact, Jake Tongs, that had a 4-yard TD reception. This is the same team. A 4-yard TD reception with just a minute 50 left on the clock. Big time. Gave the 49ers the 13 lead, which they ended up holding on to. Brock Purdy was dealing with some injuries. He was playing through multiple, from what I hear, shoulder and a toe injury. And it kind of showed a bit. He had 2 interceptions. But did throw 2 TDs and, 277 yards. CMC wasn't great in the run game, but, he was there in the receiving game as he normally is. 9 catches, 73 yards. And Ricky Pearsall had 108 yards on 4 catches. So, pretty good overall. For the Seahawks, it was kind of disappointing debut for their new, the new quarterback that they paid so much money, Sam Darnold. he didn't look amazing. He had 150 yards passing, 16 for 23. He fumbled the ball late in the game, which, ended up resulting in the 49ers win. Just a very mediocre performance by him. And, we'll see. Time will tell if it was a mistake moving on from Gino. But, yeah, not a good sign. Zach Charbonnet was solid. He had a TD rushing 46 or 47 yards, which doesn't sound like much, but based on the other performances, might have been pretty good. Jackson Smith in the Jigbaton, another Ohio State receiver who popped off. 124 yards, 9 catches. He did lose a fumble, but he accounted for 124 of 150 receiving yards that the team had. Over 60% or over 80% of the receiving yards went to Jackson Smith the Jigba, which is ridiculous. I liked seeing that. Julian Love was pretty good as well, had a sack and 10 tackles. But overall, the 49ers just destroyed them, had 10 more first downs, over 150 more total yardage was, gathered by the 49ers. So in the end, they kind of deserved it. They were the better team. And the Seahawks, they got to figure out something with their offense because Sam Darnold didn't look good. And, obviously after trading DK, outside of JSN, they don't have a ton of talent in the receiving department. So, yeah, they've got to figure it out quick. Yeah. What if...
And moving on. Oh my. And moving on, it was one of the more shocking performances from, what I was expecting. It was the Green Bay Packers destroying the Detroit Lions by 14 points, 27-13, in what was a very solid game from Green Bay all around. But we'll start with the Lions. Their first game without Ben Johnson, and it showed. Their offense was not good in the first half. They were getting dominated, and they just did not play very well in general. Only 13 points is pretty crazy for what this Detroit Lions team has been able to put up. Jared Goff played solidly, but not great, throwing for 225 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 pick. Overall, was pretty alright. And the run game was horrific, with David Montgomery having 25 yards and Jahmyr Gibbs having 19 yards. They suck.
Rematch. Vote rematch. They want to run it back.
We
gotta get. I'm gonna be locked in, honestly. We have to.
But Sam Laporta continued, his stock as being a pretty solid tight end, being the team's leading receiver with 79 yards. Amon-Ra was only held to 45 receiving yards, though it was not the best. Jahmyr Gibbs had 10 receptions and caught them all, and he only had 31 yards. So it just showed how much they were passing out the backfield. Whoa, what a fake that was. Insane. I'll do it back. I'll do it back. And yeah, overall just not a great game from the Lions. We'll see what they do without Ben Johnson this season. Nice. Jordan Love overall had a really good game. He threw for 188 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks, and was very solid. Maybe I should lock in Leaky.
But they were talking so much the first game. So I was talking a bunch back last game. We really got to win this.
Go!
What a save!
Green!
We have to help them out because they're getting cooked so bad. That dude just missed a block on both of us. Like, nice block, buddy. You didn't affect anything.
And overall, yeah, just a really good win. And how could we forget, highlighted by the newest Packer, Micah Parsons, who got a sack. So overall, a pretty good week for them. I don't think he did anything else, but he did get a sack, so that's pretty cool. And we already won a game.
The next game is the Rams beating the Texans 14-9 in a game where Matthew Stafford played. There was some concern over injuries, but he actually looked really solid. He had 245 yards and a TD, and he actually reached 1,000 career passing yards, making him the 10th quarterback to ever do so. So,
Never seen
shout
a
out,
dead guy do it.
shout out to Matt Stafford. Kyron Williams was alright. He had 66 yards rushing and a rushing TD. Puka did Puka type stuff. He had 130 yards and 10 catches. He did suffer a cut on his head at one point in the first quarter, but it didn't affect him obviously. Devontae Adams in his debut for the Rams were pretty good as well, with 51 yards on 4 catches, and Xavier Smith had a 36-yard catch. So shout out to him. The Texans offense very disappointing. 0 touchdowns scored for a team that is supposed to have a good offense. Stroud was under a lot of pressure. Maybe that's what happens when you trade away your superstar offensive tackle. But he ended up 188 yards, 1 pick. He did have 32 rushing yards, but overall, not a great performance by him. But you can't really fault him with the pressure that was being had on him. Nick Chubb, shout out Nick Chubb, yeah, he was pretty good. 60 yards on 13 carries. The receiving game, no one really stood out. Jaden Higgins led the team. The rookie had 32 receiving yards. Nico Collins only had 3 catches for 25 yards. I'm sure they're going to be looking to get him the ball a bit more next week. Both teams had 18 first downs, but the Rams had more big plays, had over 30 more total yards, and was getting it when it mattered, which is why they had the 2 TDs. As for the ramifications of this game for the Rams, it was a nice start to the season. I do believe that they are the best team in the NFC West, so you like to see him start out well though, and particularly Matthew Stafford, you like to see him start well after the concern of the offseason. The Texans, they might not even win a division if they lose this division in the Mickey Mouse freaking trash division. But the Jags look good, the Colts look good, so it would be really funny. Yeah, very disappointing though for them.
Well, moving on to, I mentioned before how the Steelers-Jets game could have been the game of the week. I mean, it could have been, but ultimately, the Bills taking on the Ravens did not disappoint, and it was absolutely the game of the week, ending a whopping 41-40. I believe that's a scoregami, but the scoregami guy wasn't there because he's actually a closet Ravens fan who got pissed. I assume you've seen that.
I have.
And I mean, just an insane game overall. We'll start with the Ravens, who are the Ravens. Lamar Jackson had a really nice game, 209 yards passing with 2 touchdowns. And how could we forget, he probably had a rushing, and 70 yards rushing with a rushing touchdown as well to go along with it. A really solid game from him. And Derrick Henry, the man that ages like fine wine, had 169 yards and a touchdown. This guy is an absolute beast. And I mean, he's just insane. He's just an insane player. He does everything well, and I mean, this is a cracked theme. The Ravens, I would not be surprised at their AFC Championship. In the AFC Championship again. Maybe against the Bills, who knows? Oh my goodness. Zay Flowers though, he was him, honestly. He had 143 yards and a touchdown. He was really nice, and maybe he's going to have a really good, breakout year. I mean, he had a good year last year, but he might be, he might do that one better. DeAndre Hopkins also had a touchdown. He was very but he had 35 yards, so let him cook. But the story of the game was that the Ravens were up by, was it 15 with like 5 minutes to go, or it was like 3 minutes to go, and they ended up choking the game late in the 4th quarter and losing to the Buffalo Bills. Just an insane game overall. And let's get to the Buffalo Bills, in fact. Josh Allen, maybe the greatest quarterback to ever live. Threw for 394 yards and 2 touchdowns. An insane performance from him. And he also had it on the ground with 30 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Just insane. He was actually the greatest player of all time, potentially.
MVP.
Like he might win another MVP, to be honest. He was really nice. James Cook also had a touchdown to go along with, let me see, 44 yards. No, but Keon Coleman has arrived. 112 yards and a touchdown. Led the Bills in receiving. Khalil Shakir, who also had 64 yards, and Josh Palmer had 61. So, and James Cook had 51. You know, these guys are kind of peak. But yeah, the Bills, you know, just showing that they can get it done. It was a game that had it all. I believe there was there was not. Never mind. There was, you know, fans tapping on DeAndre Hopkins' head. There was, you know, a 15-point comeback. Josh Allen was mad at the fans for leaving because, you know, they left when they were losing and they ended up winning with a Matt Prater field goal, by the way. And Matt Prater has been on the team for like a week, so let the Bills cook.
Moving on to Monday Night Football, we have the Minnesota Vikings pulling out what I would consider an upset. I know other people probably wouldn't, but I was, you know, I put my hand up. I was someone saying that the Vikings might have a bad season, projected them to win 4 games. And specifically, I said to give JJ McCarthy time. And, you know, it looked like I was a genius through the first 3 quarters. And then, it quickly looked like the most idiotic take on the internet in the fall. Because, my goodness, he threw it at 74-yard pick 6 in the 3rd quarter. They were trailing 17-6. Shout out Nashon Wright, who got the pick 6, 74 yards. But in the 4th quarter, it was 3 unanswered touchdowns by JJ McCarthy to just blow the game open and get him the lead and get him the win in the end. Crazy performance for a quarterback playing in his first ever game. He had 2 touchdowns, did throw a pick, the pick 6 obviously. He also had a rushing touchdown. He got it done when it mattered most. I mean, he is a national champion, you know. He knows how to get it done in big moments, and he did it there. Jordan Mason was solid. He had 68 yards on 15 carries. He looked really a lot better in the second half, I'd say. Aaron Jones had 3 catches, 44 yards, and a TD. And Jefferson had the same stat line except 4 catches, including the early 4th quarter touchdown by Jefferson. It was, a little underwhelming by Justin Jefferson for how good he is, but he was there in the 4th quarter when McCarthy was getting it going, was getting it to Jay Jettas, and so he looked a bit better then. But overall, amazing performance by the Vikings offense. Javon Hargrave on defense did have 2 sacks, so I'll shout that out. The Chicago Bears led the total yardage by like over 60 and had 6 more first downs. But in the 4th quarter, when they had to really get it done, they couldn't. So Caleb Williams started amazingly. He was kind of disappointing the rest of the game, but he was 10 for 10 at the start of the game, 86 yards, and had a rushing TD. He finished with 58 rushing, 210 passing, and a TD, both passing and rushing. He wasn't perfect, but he was solid. He showed glimpses of the superstar quarterback that he has potential to be. So I think it's a very solid performance. Just unfortunately, he couldn't really get much going in the 4th. Part of that was the large amount of penalties. They gave up. How much did they get? They gave up 127 penalty yardage, which is you're not gonna win like that. Not very many games at least. Swift wasn't great though. DeAndre Swift, 17 for 53, rushing. DJ Moore was solid, had 68 yards, but he lost a fumble and only had 3 catches. Roma Dunzo had a nice touchdown. Komet had 31 yards. Zacchaeus 47. It was a tough loss. I still think that the Bears are going to be competing for a wild card spot at the end of the season. But maybe they're a bit young. I guess we'll see. But for the Vikings, yeah, I apologize for everything I said last week. I take it back because what a performance. You got 10 picks correct. I got 7. Do you remember what your best pick was? I don't care. You got the Chargers.
Probably the Chargers.
Yeah. That's fair. That was a great pick.
me.
But yeah, you got 10, I got 7, so yeah, I guess you know more ball, at least right now, but that's about to change. It is time for the week 2 NFL predictions. I'm excited, as I always am.
Yeah!
Yep, let's get hyped.
Yeah!
First game, Washington at Green Bay. I personally am going to have to go Green Bay based on what I've seen in week 1 and what we know about these teams. Green Bay just beat up on what was one of the best NFC teams in the conference and still is. I think they really showed how much talent they have, and it's at home as well. So I think it's going to be a struggle for Washington, who didn't put up the most convincing week 1 performance. It might be a bit of a struggle for them to keep up, in my opinion. So I'm going to go with the Packers.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you there. The Packers are they might be the real deal, especially with Micah Parsons. This is like their window to win a Super Bowl, I think, and they obviously started off in dominant fashion. And I mean, whoa, it's gonna be a really good game though. I'm really excited for it. We'll see if Jaden Daniels can, have a little bit more of that magic, you know.
Okay.
But moving on, it is your AFC North little matchup between the Browns and the Ravens. And I mean, the Browns' little rookie class is like cool and all, but they're not going to beat the Ravens. The Ravens are going to be pissed. Derrick Henry's going to go quite literally for 220 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, it's going to be pretty, probably not, but I think that the Ravens get it done pretty easily. Personally, just because they'll be pissed off about not sealing the game last week. So yeah, give me the Ravens over the Browns.
Yeah, I don't disagree that the Ravens are going to win this one. I do think you got to give the Browns defense a little more credit, because the D-line looks really good so far. It's only been 1 week though. I actually think this is going to be a closer game than a lot of people will think. Unfortunately though, the Ravens they're way better than the Browns, if we're just being real. I trust them all down the stretch to get the win when it matters most, and I do think it could be a bit of it. It'll be exciting to see how Mason Graham and Carson Schwarzenegger and all the young players go handling Derrick Henry. That's always a fun matchup. But yeah, I've got to take the Baltimore Ravens. But moving on, we have Cincinnati Bengals at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and this is kind of a tough one, honestly. Jags look good, Bengals didn't look good. They're both 1-0. Actually, don't know who I want. I think I'm gonna go Cincinnati. Yeah, they're just, they have what it takes to be a good team. They have a great offense, and the Jags were impressive at times in the first week, but I just am gonna trust Joe Burrow to get it going. Hopefully, the Bengals offense can get it going a bit more this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars, against the worst defense.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you. It is a very interesting matchup, and I think that both teams could win this. They could pull it out, but to me, the Bengals will lock in after they got a bit of the rust off from week 1, and I think that Jamar Chase will be primed to have a pretty good game overall. And yeah, give me the Bengals to beat the Jags. And the next game will be the Dallas Cowboys taking on the New York Giants, and give me Dallas in Dallas as well. The Giants looked just not great last week, and I personally think that Dallas, they looked a lot better. They look like a competent football team, even post-trade and everything like that. They just look like a really good team, and I think that they'll be able to get the job done over the New York Giants.
Yeah, I agree with this one. Dak Prescott looked really good in his, debut, in his first game back from injury, I would say. And the Giants are one of the worst teams in the NFL, kind of, like, clearly they stand out with, the Saints, and you can throw the Browns in there if you want. But yeah, it's just not really, it's going to be hard for me to pick them against any team, to be honest. So I'm definitely not picking them away at Dallas. But the next game is the Detroit Lions at home against the Chicago Bears. And if this was week 1, I probably would have picked the Bears, to be honest, off of hype. But after what I saw, I have to go the Lions. I think they looked pretty good. They played a team that that will be competing for the NFC Championship in the Packers, and they look solid. We know how good the Packers or the Lions are, and the Bears are just young. I do want them to do well, but this is just a tough matchup early in the season, and a divisional matchup away from home is just tough.
Yeah, honestly, if this was in Chicago, I low-key would have gone the Bears, but the Lions are also a team I just don't see losing 2 in a row, especially this early into the season. With such a healthy team, I think that it'll be a bit of growing pains without Ben Johnson. That's kind of what it is right now, and yeah, I mean, I think that the Lions will get it done. Maybe a bit of a gritty, a tough win, but as most of the NFC North games are, but I think that it will be a win nonetheless. And moving on, it is the New England Patriots taking on the Miami Dolphins, and give me the Patriots to go into Miami and beat the Dolphins. The Dolphins are not a good football team. The Patriots, I think, are better, and I think that the Patriots will win. That's my thoughts.
Next up, oh yeah, you were talking about the Patriots. I also have the Patriots. As I said before, I don't know how the Dolphins are favorites. They didn't look good at all on either side of the ball, really. And the Patriots, they're young, but I definitely trust them more. I'm pretty sure we both had them around like 7, 8 wins, competing for the last wild
I
card
had them
spot.
9-8.
Yeah, that's pretty much there. So like, they're a solid team. They should be at least. They have what it takes. And honestly, they played a lot better than the Dolphins week 1. But moving on is the San Francisco 49ers away at the Saints. This is kind of a tough one with all the 49ers injuries, but they're just a better team in this one. They still have CMC, and that might be enough, honestly. The Saints just are not a very good football team at all. Um, I hope Spencer Rattler can cook, but I'm not sure he can. And yeah, there's just not very comparable teams in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with. It's actually kind of tough because of the injuries, but I think I am gonna go with the 49ers. I think that they'll be healthy enough, and that they'll get the job done over the Saints. But moving on, it is the Buffalo Bills going into New York and taking on the Jets. And in my opinion, I have the Bills pulling it out. The Jets actually could be an interesting team this year. They looked extremely competitive in their first matchup, but ultimately, when you're taking on the MVP and you're taking on the best player in the game in Josh Allen, I don't think it's going to be a very good day for you. And I think that the Bills will get the job done. Maybe not scoring 41 points this time, but you never know, I guess.
Yeah, these teams aren't comparable either. The Bills just played one hell of a game and beat the Baltimore Ravens, so I don't really see how any team in the AFC, maybe outside the Ravens, I guess you could still have, but that you would pick over the Bills. And so in my opinion, this just isn't really a close matchup. I really like Justin Fields, but yeah, it just isn't it isn't a fair game, honestly. But moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers at home against the Seattle Seahawks. I'm gonna have to go Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers looked really good last week. It's at home, and Seattle, the Sam Darnold, bit disappointing. So based on that, I kind of have to. I feel like I have to go with Pittsburgh in this one.
Yeah, give me Pittsburgh as well. The Steelers looked really good, and maybe they've unlocked, the older version of Aaron Rodgers, who was a bit better. And, I just think that they're going to keep continuing to improve week in, week out. And, yeah, give me the Steelers over the Seahawks. But the next game is the Los Angeles Rams going into Tennessee and taking on Cam Ward in his home opener debut. And give me the Rams to get the job done. You know, his team was just failing him last week, and I don't see that changing for quite a while. The Rams are just a better team. They're a grittier team. They get it done however they need, whether it's a blowout, whether they have to score 50 million points, or whether they have to score 14 points and only win by 5. But, you know, they get the job done, and that's kind of what I like about this team, to be honest. So yeah, give me the Rams.
This are we doing lock of the week? Because
Yeah.
I kind of forgot about it. It was supposed to be the Bills, but I forgot about it. So now it's the Los Angeles Rams. They're just a much more experienced team in this matchup, so I'm gonna take them obviously. The Titans, you know, they showed flash. Cam Ward at least showed flashes of what he could be. But overall, they're just not a great team yet, and it's gonna be at least another year or two before they can really compete. And yeah, the Rams are really competing for something right now.
I also
Bro.
forgot about my lock of the week.
What was your one?
Didn't have one. Just gone.
I thought you were gonna pick the
I
Broncos.
think I have
honestly.
one. I think I have one.
Carolina Panthers. I have pulling off an upset away at the Arizona Cardinals. They're heavy underdogs, at least on sleeper. But you know, there were flashes. I liked Bryce Young. At times, I hope he can get it together a bit in this next game. But the Cardinals just didn't impress me, honestly. So I feel like there's, you know, at least a couple upsets each week. I think this definitely has the making of one. So I'm gonna take the young Panthers in this one.
And you know, I'm taking that too. Give me the young Panthers. I don't know why this team, they suck, but I kind of like them, and that's why I'm choosing them over Cardinals. And I just think that Bryce Young hopefully can be a good quarterback. He didn't play very well. Him and Bo Nix played extremely ordinary and were probably the worst quarterbacks of week 1. So, you know, let's hope that they can improve and be better. And let's hope that the Panthers can win for my tip. It is Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos taking on Indianapolis in Indianapolis. And, you know, the Miami Dolphins, we know that they suck. It's time for them to tank. Oh my. But the Broncos are here, and I think that they can get the win over the Colts. I think that it was the one-time Danny Dimes game. Who knows? Either he's gonna become the next Peyton Manning, or he's gonna suck. There's no in between. And I'm banking on him sucking, especially against this pass rush and this defense. I just think that we will be suffocating them as always, and I think that we'll do enough to get it done, as well as the fact that they have Charvarius Ward out, who's their #1 corner. So overall, yeah, I think that we get the job.
Who's gonna benefit from that? Cortland's son? Maybe if you had Jerry Judy, you know,
Okay,
I
Michael.
believe. But
Okay, Michael.
give me the Indianapolis Colts here. Our first difference, which is kind of crazy. Last
is
week we had like
wild.
6 games we were different on, but not a lot of great games in this one. I just, you know, Broncos ain't really showing me nothing. Honestly, week 1, I was expecting
That's
some more.
fair enough.
You know, I've been
Honestly,
all off
fair.
season. I've been hearing about how you guys are sneaky AFC championship contenders, and I didn't see much of it yet. You know, you never know. Maybe you'll blow them out and really show it this week too. But you got to show it first, and the Colts showed a lot. Daniel Jones looked really good, so you know, F it. Give me the Colts.
That's fair enough, to be honest.
Hell yeah. Frick, I closed it. The next game is the Philadelphia Eagles away from home at the Kansas City Chiefs. I am taking the Chiefs to restore balance, honestly, because they lost to the Chargers, so I think they're going to bounce back. I think it's going to be another one of those weird Chiefs games. Mahomes isn't amazing, but he's alright. A lot of check downs, but I think they're gonna have the ball in a one score game late in the game, and they're gonna ice it against the Eagles.
You know, back-to-back differences. In my game of the week, I think that the Philadelphia Eagles will beat
my
the
game of the week
Chiefs.
too?
Yeah, you forgot. And yeah, I mean, it's the big game. that we've all been waiting for, and it's going to be a very interesting game. I do think that Philadelphia pull it out, even though they didn't look amazing in week 1. You know, the Chiefs looked a lot worse, and you know, yelling. They may be Loki. You know, not necessarily that they were the worst team, but you know, fighting and yelling with each other in week 1 is kind of wild in my opinion, and that's what they were doing the whole game, and that's what I think that, you know, the Eagles will do again, especially since they'll have Jalen Carter. I think was it Jalen Carter that spat on
Yep, it was.
what's his name? So you know that's just a plus for them. And so yeah, give me the Philadelphia Eagles.
And that's a goal kick.
Yeah. Moving on, the Vikings are taking on Atlanta in Minnesota, and give me the Vikings. I do like Atlanta a lot, but like, you know, the Vikings, they just found their next quarterback, and I just think that, you know, they've got a really strong team. Going into Minnesota is a very, you know, it's a very tough place to play for opposing teams. So give me the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on the Vikings. You know, I was quite down on them compared to everyone else, but I think, you know, that I've kind of restored my faith in them after that game. So I'm gonna take them. McCarthy was amazing. So yeah, give me the Vikings. But the next game is the Houston Texans. Let me change my pick. At home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I am taking Baker Mayfield to get it done. I think that the Buccaneers looked solid. I liked Baker Mayfield. I liked Egbuka in the first game. And the Texans look terrible, just to be honest. I do think they'll pick it up a little bit. But overall, I honestly trust the Bucs roster a lot more right now than the Texans. I think that is why I'm taking Tampa Bay here.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I'm taking Tampa Bay as well. I just don't trust the Texans at all. They just, without an offensive line, you can't get anything done. And in the last game, my lock of the week, the LA Chargers to beat the Raiders. I just think that the Chargers have arrived. They've officially become an elite NFL team. Justin Herbert, the if man himself, is elite after getting with Madison Beer. They are the greatest team ever.
W analysis? Yeah. You know, you took the word right out of my mouth, you know, so I got the Chargers for those reasons. And yeah, they looked really, really impressive. Beat a Super Bowl team and a perennial Super Bowl appearing team in the Chiefs. And yeah, the Rams, I mean, I like the Raiders, and they had a nice win, but they weren't crazy impressive. And yeah, that's why I'm making my pick what I did. But that, cue the outro. Thank you guys for watching. It is the LA Fakers, and we really appreciate you watching this video. Leave a like, you know, subscribe, make a comment. How do you feel about the Broncos matchup next week? You guys, you confident?
I'm confident.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. Browns about to beat the Ravens, but we do appreciate you watching. We had 4 views last video. I think it was all bots, but if there was a real person, we really do. Please leave a comment. I would love to just know that there's real people, but I don't really think there is. But yeah, I hope this video reaches you, and you know, next week we should be back if all things go well with another one of these videos. Let us know down below, you know, what you agree with, what you disagree with, how stupid I am for hating on the Vikings. And yeah, that's, you know, the video, so cue the outro. On you.
And as always, good. Bye. Or you bum.
Yes!
Nice.
I'm gonna let him shoot it. Oh,
Damn.
splash.
Ow.
We gotta get some offense. We're gonna get some offense! Go in!
About to bang it.
Damn it!
Ooh.
I'm trying to get back.
Nice.
Nice. You got it. Cook.
Go!
What a save!
Green! Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Come on, y'all suck. Sorry.
Hell yeah, come on. We gotta embarrass them.
This is crazy.
This could be a shot, like, just embarrassing some bums.
Oh, they might get it back.
Hell no!
No. No, they won't.
I'm locked in. Yeah, thanks, bro.
Oh,
Watch this. Done! That was kind of mid.
come on.
On his head!
Sorry.
Forfeit for real.
Forfeit, guys, before it gets too embarrassing.
Getting embarrassing. Hell no!
Loki got cooked. He would have scored, but he got bumped by his teammate.
Yeah!
And now we're gonna get now we're gonna score. We weren't locked in like the last 2 games, so you know it's fair. But now that we've locked in, we're just
For real.
dominating them.
They had the excuse that they just got on. Well, you've had 2 games now. There ain't no excuse now. Y'all just suck. They're super quiet now. He was like, run it last game, rematch. Just to get smoked. We went the whole first 2 games, you know, one of us was doing our stuff and wasn't locked in. And now that we're locked in, this isn't close.
What are y'all doing? I
Did you
appreciate.
just miss?
Yes.
Yeah!
Bang! Wanted another goal.
GG, for real. Was a
GG's.
fun match up. This car, blame car. What does that mean?
It was the car's fault, guys. I've never heard anyone blame their car.
Pick a different car
deep
then,
in
bro.
his bag. What a block! What a block! What a block! What a block! 7-0, embarrassing. Oh my goodness. Yeah, get him out of here. Get him out of here. Rematch, they want to run it back.
No,
they don't need no towel.
Let's just
They
leave.
don't
Let's
need
just
no
leave.
towel.
Bro. Do we want to rematch him?
Rematch.
If you say so, I'm down. I'm down to embarrass.
They realize that we can play now. Let's see if they
Yeah,
can
let's
stop
lock
us.
in for the whole game and
Again.
see how this goes.
Nice. Damn.
You.
Loki might not be a goal 'cause he
Hey!
sucks. Because he
Get
sucks.
bumped, kid.
Hey, buddy. Get out there. Go!
Mid. Team.
Alright. Bounce it out to the outside.
Ooh, big pinch. Swing and a miss.
Okay.
Did he just bump his teammate or something? Why is his teammate not
I think
pushing?
so.
Oh, I thought that got by him. Sorry. Good touch.
We're just gonna chuck it up. Oh.
Almost on his head. Almost embarrassed that man. Splash! What a shot by the kid. You.
Damn.
Oh, that's crazy. Go in.
I'd say, yeah. It's already over.
Just
These guys
sending
suck.
it at this point.
These guys suck
Oh,
so
so
much.
Oh, what a save!
Oh.
We have to help them out because they're getting cooked so bad. That dude just missed a block on both of us. Like, nice block, buddy. You didn't affect anything, and you set your teammate up for failure. Spawn the boost game. Okay, I see how it is. Time wasting.
Chucking it. Yep.
We should really be disappointed that we only have 2 goals. Honestly, we should have way more. But like, I suck.
You know what? Let me help them. Let me make it close for them. You know they can't score.
Come back.
Here we go. 10 seconds left. Let's see if they can do something. Here we go. Last play of the game, and it's over. And they left. That's it.
Have a good night.
Yeah, gotta keep it humble.
Yep, I said GG. Let's leave. Just make sure we don't have to play that dude again. There's one of them still.
Yeah.